Hey,
Hey!
I'm here.
Hello, looking beautiful.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you.
Are
I'm
you just
happy
getting
to
off of
be
work?
here. Huh?
Are you just getting off of work?
No. Today was a good day. Today was a free day.
Okay,
Today
perfect.
was errand day. Yeah, no.
Okay, very nice. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Dr. Pierre, for joining. We have a lot of people here. We're super excited to hear from you. I've been raving about you for years now.
I
So
appreciate you. I appreciate you, my New York homegirl.
I already mentioned that. Dr. Pierre, could you introduce yourself a little bit
Sure.
about yourself and who you are from in your own words?
Okay. Well, what did you say?
Oh, I just mentioned that we were both raised by immigrant families, speak a second
Yes.
language.
Yes. So, okay, where do I start? So, my name is Dr. Jennifer Pierre. I am from New York, Queens, and Long Island. I am a naturopathic physician and a public health professional. So, I've been in healthcare for a total of like 15, 16 years now. I've been passionate about health since I was a child. And yes, the immigrant parent thing, my family is from Haiti, and Haiti is naturally a very agricultural society. So, or agrarian society. I kind of grew up with like herbs and natural foods and
Mm.
things like that. But the interesting thing is when my parents came here, they both wound up going into the medical field, so
Hmm.
conventional medicine. So my mom is a retired nurse and my dad is a retired lab technologist. So he's
Hmm.
like a big science geek. I used to go to work with both of them, and my dad would look at like lab specimens, and I'd be right next to him. So he would look at like specimens and vials of blood and all of that. And he would identify microbes. My dad is a big nerd. So I would go to work with him, and then I would go to
Wow.
work with my mom. She worked in a nursing home for most of her career, but she also worked in a hospital. So I used to go to work with her as well. so, so I had both sides, which is pretty much why I'm the way I am. I believe in both sides of medicine.
Mhm.
So that's the integrative part started a long time ago.
That's amazing. And how's that the first time I'm hearing that story?
Because we're doing this today. That's why.
Because we're doing this today. I love it. So Dr. Pierre, tell me, so even though you have your parents in medicine and working on both the caring as well as the scientific side of things, did you always know you wanted to be a naturopathic doctor or a physician in general?
No, physician. So first I wanted to be a nurse because my mom was a nurse. So that was like my first goal. And then after that, I'm laughing because my husband is walking by. After that, probably around 13, I decided I wanted to be a surgeon. I was very like dead set on that.
Well, you're Capricorn, so
Yeah,
when
well,
you're dead set.
I was dead set because I was in lab class, biology lab, and they had us dissecting a frog. And you know how most kids would be like skeevy and like, oh my
That's me.
God. And I was like totally into it. And I came home that day and I was like, Dad, I'm going to be a surgeon. Like that was it. It was happening. So that kind of started the journey. He was happy about that. Immigrant story, doctor, lawyer,
Hmm.
engineer.
Those are all
So
appropriate options for us.
exactly. So, he was happy about that because my brother was definitely not into blood and guts or any of that.
Mm.
So, my journey took me to undergrad at Cornell. So I went to Cornell University undergrad, and everybody was pre-med. So, I wasn't unique in that, but around my second year is when I did a program where I shadowed doctors at Cornell Medical Center in the city, and well, New York City, let me be specific. And it was kind of difficult for me in that I really thought at the time that doctors spent a lot more time with patients. And so I
Mm.
was basically like shuttled in and out of, rooms, and it was like
Mm.
5-minute visits, 7-minute visits. And it didn't sit well with me. And it was really difficult because after I finished that, they called it an externship at that time, I was really stuck. And it really was
Mm.
that. I was torn with the idea that I wouldn't be able to spend as much time with patients. It's that
Mm.
simple. Like a lot of people might be like, really? Like but it was that important to me, and it was in my spirit. It didn't sit right. So that was difficult because it was like, well, what do I do now? And I really didn't see what other option. Like I looked into osteopathic medicine, but at the time, and even still now, it's pretty similar to allopathic medicine. So allopathic medicine is what people know as like MDs, so medical doctors. You'll see that behind their names. And osteopathic doctors, you'll see DO behind their name. And so DOs practiced, I would say back then, pretty much, I'd say more similarly to what a naturopathic doctor does, and I'll get into that later. But their whole thing is that they look at bones and like how the misadjustment of bones and things like that could cause problems in the body. So I was like, okay, that sounds a little bit more, you know, natural, you know, and then it just, nothing was sticking. So I found out about public health. And two of my classmates were talking about it, and it was very preventative. And I was like, this sounds like me, preventative medicine. That's what I want to do. So I went to SUNY Albany School of Public Health, got my MPH, loved it, worked at Brooklyn Hospital. I was a prenatal health educator. And I love that. I love pregnant women. So that's where it started. My obsession with pregnant women started at Brooklyn Hospital.
And pregnant women love you.
Thank you. And I just loved it. So I was doing like health education. And then I was also informing. I was responsible for making sure everybody signed off on the PCAP program. So that was the Prenatal Care and Assistance Program. So I had to make sure all the nurses signed off on the charts. Like I'd have to go through all the charts and make sure they signed off, and made sure the HIV educator signed off, the dietitian, you know, all of that, because it was a whole system and it was funded by the government. So anyway, so then that happened. And then, interestingly enough, I did a stint where I modeled for a while. So I modeled for 5 years. And I remember when I went back into public health, I didn't want to tell people that because I thought they might think it was like, you know, frivolous or whatever, but it was something I had always wanted to do, and I couldn't do it when I was in school. So I said, why not? But interestingly enough, when I was doing that, I was also working for a promotions company doing wine tasting. So that happened. And then I got into yoga really heavily and became a yoga instructor. I mean, there's all types of stories and details in this, but you know, if you want some of those, you can stop me and I'll give you some of those stories. But so then after that, the doctor bug still was bothering me. And I was like, I don't know what to do about this. So one of my friends, he was like, you sure you don't want to do the program in Cuba, because Cuba is more integrated and you probably enjoy the program, and then you love to travel, so it would be perfect for you. And I said, and then I kind of, you know, I wasn't really settled on that. I wasn't really settled on leaving New York. And then one day, while I was working at a mental health facility, because by this point I had gone back into public health, and I started working at a group home for mentally ill, chemically addicted adults. So that was like my foray back into the healthcare world. And one day I was at work and I was like Googling, and I was like, you know, there has to be something out there that's more integrative, because the doctor thing isn't going away and I don't know what to do with this. So I found out about naturopathic medicine, and I was like, why haven't I heard of this before? Like, where was this, you know, when I was 19 years old and decided I wasn't going to go to medical school anymore. So I researched it. There were only a few schools where you can do it, where the program would be accredited, and it was, you know, accredited by the federal government, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I went to visit, and I was like, oh my God, if I'm going to do this, I know, like, I visited a few schools, but I went to the school in Arizona, SCNM, and Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine. And I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it here. It took me 3 years to make the decision. In the meantime, that's when my yoga journey happened. I became a yoga instructor, taught meditation and yoga. And then after that, went to medical school. So that's kind of the story. It was very circuitous. As you can see, I had all different types of, I mean, things that I did and explored. But, you know, I remember feeling frustrated because I felt like the thread couldn't be easily seen of how and why I did these things, but I was constantly on the search of like healing. You know, how can I put all these healing modalities together and create something beautiful? Like that was my goal. Like, how can I do this? And I struggled with finding my place in that, you know, and also like kind of going on off, you know, going on the off beaten path. How do they say that? Off the beaten path.
Yeah.
I really struggled with that because I couldn't see anyone doing what I really wanted to do. And so, med school was hard. It was hard. It was hard going back to school after having a break. But I felt like I found it. And to be honest, I know a lot of people when they hear like naturopathic physician, like what's that? The easiest way I explain it is like, especially with schooling, it's like med school plus, and that's not to diminish what someone learns in conventional medical school, but you have to learn both. So in describing the education is like an easier way to describe what I have to do. I had to learn both. So I took classes in natural modalities like hydrotherapy and acupuncture and Chinese medicine and mind-body medicine and physical adjustments and you know, homeopathy and botanical medicine, but I also had to take the big science classes. So I had to learn biochemistry, you know, microbiology, all the stuff that you would learn in regular medical school, all the ologies, gynecology, urology. So it's both. And I think a lot of people don't know that. So they think it's like, oh, well, they're probably like there's a joke that we're like sitting in the garden, drinking tea and picking herbs, you know? And yeah, it's not.
If only it were that simple.
If only it were that simple. And I remember there were times it was so hard. I remember getting upset and being like, why am I trying to learn both? Like maybe I should have just gone to conventional medical school and just kind of like then figured out my way to do it more naturally. But, you know, there's many times now when I'm working with my patients and I'm like, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Dr. Pierre, I was literally about to say the same thing. Like, I love that you stayed true to yourself and you took the harder path. You didn't just settle for what was or what was, you know, the standard. You knew there had to be a different and a better and more holistic way. And for me, myself, coming from the regular system, I wasn't getting anywhere with getting better. I was getting worse. And I practically had a death sentence on me where they told me, your PCOS is only going to get worse with time. Wow. And I was at the point where I was like, it can't get any worse at this point. And working with you and figuring out how to work with my body, the herbs, the acupuncture, the diet, the lifestyle, the supplements. I mean, literally why I want people to hear you speak today, because my life has changed because you persevered. And I don't think I would have been in this position had it not been for you.
I really appreciate you saying that. Sometimes it's hard for me to like take credit, quote unquote, because I just feel, and it's gonna sound whatever, but this is how I feel. I feel like this is my purpose, right? So when it's your purpose and you know it's your purpose, you don't really have a choice, right? Like you don't have I didn't have a choice, because what happened to me, like, that's why I said there's so many other details in this story that we could not do in this call. But my life became more painful the more I wouldn't move in the direction of my purpose. So literally there were points in my life stood still where things weren't happening for me until I said, okay, finally I'm going to naturopathic medical school. Like literally, like my life would not move forward. And it was extremely painful because nothing would work. So there was one point where it was like I couldn't get a job for a period of time, because until I said I'm doing this, everything opened up. It was like the money came, the opportunity came. Next thing you know, like I remember when I was moving to Arizona, I found my apartment a week before I went there, you know, and I didn't even see it. And now I'm a Capricorn. We don't just do things without seeing them, right? I saw a few bedrooms in the apartment and I was like, I'm going to go for it. It was a good price. I went for it and it was beautiful, right? But I took so many risks. But because I had gone through so many hard experiences where my life wasn't, it just felt stagnant. you know, even New York felt stagnant, you know, because even though I went to school, you know, upstate New York, it was still New York. And it just felt like if I don't get out of here and shake things up, like it's not going to change. Right. So that's part of also why I did Arizona, because I wanted to challenge myself. I didn't know anybody there. I didn't have any friends there when I decided to do it. But it was another way I felt like I just needed to shake things up and kind of challenge myself. And, you know, I really appreciate that you were talking about, you know, that you wanted to talk about this and talk about purpose and health, because I don't think people think about their life purpose like that. And maybe for some people it's not as dramatic, but like my husband had a similar experience. Like his life literally stood still until he moved in the direction of his purpose. And so God bless
found
people.
you.
and so God bless people who don't have to go through that, and maybe they do in their own ways, but like ours was extremely dramatic. So like when we connected, it was crazy how we both had gone through experiences where until we said, okay, fine, I'm doing this, and moved in the direction of our purpose, then, you know, nothing would open up.
That is so interesting. And look at you now, happily married, thriving. You took your business online during the pandemic. I mean, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. So I will say part of that journey is, again, purpose. So I think a lot of times people are in certain experiences where life they kind of just accept what's going on, right? They're in a job for a long period of time. They know they're not being valued there for what they're doing, and they just stay. And I've been the type of person where that hurts me to the core. You know, if I feel like I'm not growing, I'm not stretching, I'm not advancing, I've done everything that I could do with a position, it's like, then it's time to go. And that's essentially what happened. And I felt like, to be honest, COVID was the perfect opportunity because I had already taken the practice. So for background, I was working at 2 medical practices in Connecticut for about 3 years. And I was managing one. And what happened was essentially I was supposed to become co-owner of that practice. And the owner kind of wasn't really letting that process go. And so, you know, this happens to a lot of people in life, right? Where you're in a place and you're killing it and you're making the money and you're making it successful. And sometimes things don't move forward. So
and they dangle a carrot.
And listen, I know my worth. I know my value. So you're not going to just dangle a carrot. I'm going to create my own carrot. I'm going to grow my own carrots. Okay.
You created the whole farmer's market.
So I created my own carrots, you know, like you said, I grew my own farm, and I said, if I could do this for other people, there's no reason why I can't do it for myself. So yes, in the middle, hey,
Hi, everyone.
I see some familiar faces. Hi. So I said, you know, it was time for me to create my own thing, my own situation, and to not be scared. You know, in the past, like in my 20s, I had situations where I started businesses, like smaller things, like, you know, I would do hair for friends and get paid. I would do, I remember I had a crochet business where I would crochet things and sell them online. I was a hair blogger for some, you know, like I had all these different things that I tried. At one point I had an idea to do like a yoga clothing line, but I would always get scared. And as they would grow and get really big, I would kind of be like, this is getting too big. I can't manage this. I can't do this by myself. So, you know, when this opportunity came about, it was like, I literally took a practice that was failing and made it come back to life. So I said, why can't I create my own thing? And we were already virtual. Oh, someone said, can others hear them? Clean Body Living, you can't hear us? I see she said, can others hear them? Okay, yes. All right, so you guys can hear us. So I said, yeah, like, why not create my own? And, you know, what is there to be afraid of, right? When you've already done it for someone else, what is there to be afraid of? And I think that's part of the problem, right? Like, we feel that security working for other people. And I'm not shading anyone who works for other people and is having, has a great job and makes great money. But for me, it's always been in my heart to be an entrepreneur, but I was just scared,
That's crazy to hear coming from you, someone who has so many talents, is so forthcoming with your goals and ambitions. To hear that, even you kind of tiptoed around taking your business to the next level, in this case taking your own practice to that next level. So I think that's really good for everyone else to hear too. It's completely normal to have those kind of fears and feelings.
Of course.
And I personally always used to think that there's like special people out there, the successful ones, and they just bada boom bada bang, it just happens for them. But that's not true. You don't really see the side of people where they are struggling or hesitant. And something else that you said about your life becoming difficult when you weren't living in your purpose. Some of the biggest transformations I've had in your office is when you asked me, why are you resisting? Or what are you resisting?
Listen,
and like you don't even realize it, but so much clarity comes from taking a moment to see what you're resisting and then thinking why. Or like when I didn't want to get my blood work done, what was I scared of? What did I not want to address? You know what I mean?
What did you not want to see? Right?
Exactly.
What did you not want to deal with? What did you feel like you weren't prepared to deal with? Right? And so I think because of the pain that I experienced is why I think it's what makes me relatable, honestly. And I'm not saying that to toot my own horn. I'm saying that a lot of times to have those foundational moments with patients where you're breaking through, like it takes for you to break through for you to be able to help people. And I personally, I don't know how I knew this at 19 years old, but at 19 years old, I didn't think that 5 minutes was enough time to kind of break through, right? And like I said, no shade to anyone else. That just didn't sit right in my spirit. So it's still not good enough for me, right? Because I like really deep, authentic relationships. That's what I like from my family and my friends. And so it's the same way with my patients. And I dig deep and I ask the hard questions. And I try to be supportive.
You do.
I try to be supportive and caring in what I do, but I'm firm because I don't want people to have to go through, lifetimes, right? If we have another one after this, I don't know that, right? But I don't want people to have to go through those things. And my time periods of pain when I was resisting is enough for me to try to make sure other people don't go through that. And I think we're always going to go through pain in life. Like, we're not promised that life is not going to be painful, but it's extremely important for me to get to the root, right? That's why I chose the medicine that I do, but get to the root of what ails a person. And I ask those questions, and it truly is, like I say, body, mind, spirit. Like I'm a body, mind, spirit doctor, but I am. And, the spirit is like the prayer. I'm a Christian, but I'm also a yogi and a meditator, right? And I don't think those two there's no reason why those two worlds can't connect. So that time I spent, in India in an ashram studying yoga, informs the spirit piece. And the mind, I was, a mental health counselor. So I'm really, passionate about, what's your mental health like? Are you okay? Do you need a therapist?
We needed a lot of that back in our day when we worked together.
Yeah, I'm like, do you have a therapist? Everyone should have a therapist. And of course the body part, because, I'm a physician and I do the blood work and I do all that kind of stuff, but I feel like all of it has to connect. Like I don't feel like you can leave any part out. And it's extremely important to me to touch all those areas. So that's what I do.
What you do.
That's what I do.
And then just so everyone here is aware, when Dr. Pierre says 5 minutes isn't enough, we once spent an hour and a half on blood results alone.
Don't
literally.
And they'll be like, oh, really? So, so I'll get that extra time. And, there have been times, like, to be honest, like, I enjoy spending time with you, and I do enjoy spending time with a lot of my patients to a fault, right? Sometimes it's like you have to have stronger boundaries. And I'm definitely working on that because people can take advantage of it, right? But I enjoy the time. And like, I'm not just saying this because you're on here now. Like, you are one of those patients I enjoy extra time with, you know, and sometimes, thank you for the love. Sometimes there are opportunities where you can build deeper relationship and foundation, which is why we're even on this right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you find
Absolutely.
out more about the person, you find out how you connect, and you have these great conversations. And so in that process, I've learned a lot about you, and I'm pretty transparent, so I don't mind sharing things about me. I think sometimes certain doctors may feel like they, you know, they just want to be very standoffish. And I have a certain level, you know, of like, you know, you got to stay professional, but at the same time, I'm a human being and I'm very comfortable in my skin. So I do share my experiences, hoping that that can help someone.
And it has helped me tremendously. So we're coming up at 27 minutes. So let me just ask you two more questions. One on women specifically, since you are a women's health expert, and I know that's your passion. And then the second one would be some tips for everyone here for the year 2021 and how to leverage health to make their lives happier and more successful. So on the topic of women, can you tell me a little bit about what makes us as women more or very vulnerable to these kind of hormonal imbalances and other kind of things, but at the same time, such powerful creatures?
Oh my God.
If you can speak to that about women, and since you've worked with so many women and it's your passion, what is it about us?
So I will say the reason, well, I'll just start off by saying this. The reason why I love working with women, because I think women are the foundation of the family. I do. Whether you have a, you know, a family or not, right? Like children, it doesn't matter. Women are foundational to me. And when a woman says something, everything goes, right? And people don't even realize it. It's subtle many times, and we don't even know our own power, but that's another story. So we are, whenever I see a male patient, either his wife, his mother, or his sister sent him. Very rarely does a man come in alone. The reason why I transitioned to seeing mostly women is because I love hard cases, and women are hard cases. They are. Because we have our hormonal pathways, and men do too. But there's so many things that can go wrong with a woman that I like the challenge. I like the puzzle. And so when you're talking about it, just when you think about women specifically, we have this hormonal pathway, right? And in particular, the reproductive pathway is what a lot of people pay attention to, but people don't realize that the stress pathway connects with that reproductive pathway, right? So I always kind of,
unfortunately,
yeah. So I always kind of do this visual with patients where I'm like, okay, so you start with cholesterol. That's your building block of your hormones. And then you have a few other hormones that come from that, pregnenolone, DHEA, that splits off into the stress pathway with cortisol, progesterone, and then you have this pathway, your reproductive pathway, where you go down to testosterone, and then testosterone is converted to estrogen. So you have these, and I'm skipping steps, right? There's a lot of other pieces in this, but I like to explain that to patients so they understand that sometimes your stress pathway is stealing from your reproductive pathway. And this is why when a lot of women will have reproductive issues, they also tend to be very stressed. They also tend to be very fatigued. They're worn out, you know, and when I check these levels on them, I look at their cortisol or I look at some of their hormones, you know, things may be off. Like you mentioned PCOS. With women with PCOS, they tend to have high testosterone. So now all this testosterone is kind of building up in this hormonal pathway, and it's not being converted to estrogen, or if it is being converted to estrogen, it's not being converted to the form that we can use. It's turned into these metabolites, which is kind of like waste, estrogen waste, for lack of a better word. So when you have all these little pieces happening, and women are just like, oh, well, it's just my period, it's just irregular, but not realizing all of that, and not realizing also that sugar has a big part of dysregulating this pathway as well. So yeah, I could talk about this for days, but I mean, I find it fascinating. I find endocrinology fascinating. I love it. And since I was in school, I really enjoyed treating women and just that difficulty. And I think the other thing that kind of frustrated me was because of the lack of time that women have with their physicians, you don't really have time to talk about what happens in this pathway, right? Like there's no time. So how would you know? And so there's a lot of women who come to me, they're ready to like go get IVF. And I'm like, did anyone check your hormones? Like they can't get pregnant, but no one has looked at their hormones.
Or
and
stress.
If you have PCOS, as you know, if nobody is looking into it, how are you going to get pregnant? You know, it's still there. If you're taking birth control, you still have PCOS. If you're doing IVF, you still have PCOS, and your likelihood of having a successful IVF is reduced if you have PCOS. So these hormonal irregularities aren't just going to fix themselves on their own. It takes a comprehensive approach, and I love doing that. I love hey, yes, this is good content for pregnancy. It is. I love the whole process. So, and I love helping women get pregnant.
Yes, and you're great at it.
Thank you. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy giving someone hope when someone said no. And I never overpromise, you know, but I always promise that I'm going to look into it and try to find out what's wrong and see if you know, we could fix it.
And cure the root cause.
Yeah, and if we
symptoms.
can't, yeah, and if we can't, you know, and it is something out of my hands, like it's something structural that could be damaged, like fallopian tubes and things like that, that's different. But if it's hormonal, there's lots of things that you can do for hormonal imbalances, lots. And PCOS, I had someone contact me last night when I posted that we were going to have this talk, and she's like, you treat PCOS? And I was like, yeah, I've been doing it for a while successfully. And it's not like, again, toot my own horn. It's just that if you put the steps together, it can work. But as you know, it's not easy necessarily.
No.
You have to stay consistent, and you did the work. But it's not like this rocket science thing. It really, if you study hormones and you study the herbs and what they do, and you study nutrition, and you know, you put all this together, you put together a treatment plan that works, but the patient has to follow it.
Yes, but the way you put my puzzle together and you really holistically looked at my mental health, my history, my hormones, my blood, my diet, my lifestyle, my work, my career, my purpose, you took all of that together and put those puzzles together to make it work finally. And yeah, I could talk about that all day, honestly, Dr. Pierre, the transformation. And you know, it took 1.5 years of us working together for me to be in a position where I feel mostly symptom free, but I've maintained it for 2 years now.
That's a big,
you know what I mean? So it's not just it's not a quick fix, and it's also not a band-aid. For me, it was a permanent solution working with you.
Thank you. That's the part. It's not a quick fix. And unfortunately, a lot of people ask me about, oh, are there natural ways that I can treat this? But they're not willing to do the work. And it's become a little difficult for me wanting to help people, but knowing they're not ready. And sometimes I say to people, like, you know, come to me when you're ready, when you're sure, because it is work. And I remember you asked me, I don't know if you remember this, you said, will my PCOS be like cured? Or will it ever like stop? Like, will I not have it anymore? And do you remember what I told you?
I believe you said no, but we'll manage it now.
So I said, I don't believe in cures. I never use that word. And I said, you shouldn't trust a doctor who uses that cure word, because I don't believe in it. Healing, reversing, those are words I use. I don't like cure. It's like, sounds like this magical like thing. It sounds a little empty to me sometimes, because it makes it sound like it's like, you know, like poof, we cured it. You know, so I generally don't use that. But I said that I can't promise you that, but what I can tell you is it'll get better. I said I can promise people that. I can promise that something will get better, but I don't say that because PCOS is a lifelong condition, in that you can definitely not exhibit symptoms anymore. Like you can have, you can have, you know, your cysts shrink and disappear, like what happened to you, right? But if you go back to those same habits, guess what's going to come back?
I never want that back again.
You know, I see a question here I wanted to address. Some of it kind of disappeared, but it says something about everything appears normal in previous miscarriage, something about supplements. So I would not recommend supplements just blindly to you. I appreciate the question, but I would never do that because that would be irresponsible. So I appreciate the question, and I would not be irresponsible. That's giving medical advice. But I will say, when something appears normal, and you have a miscarriage, and I'm sorry for that because I know many people who have suffered miscarriages, many times appears normal, there's other things that need to be looked at, like hormones, a full hormonal panel, which I can tell you doesn't normally happen at the gynecologist anymore. It used to happen. I don't know why it doesn't happen anymore. It could be a time issue. Generally, if you can't get pregnant after a while and you've had numerous miscarriages, you're usually referred to a reproductive endocrinologist, and they do like the structural tests, like HSG, a hysterosalpingogram, and things like that to make sure your fallopian tubes, ovaries, everything looks good. But it's much deeper than that. But the first thing that should be done is a full hormonal panel. And if that's not done, that's the everything looks normal part. That's the part that's missing. It has to happen. If no one has done a full hormonal panel on you, there's more to the story. So feel free to reach out to me, drjpierre.com. And if you want someone to do something like that, that's what I do. I fill in those middle pieces where people can't get pregnant. They have had miscarriages and no one can really tell them anything. And all they're saying is IVF, when there's a chance that you may not need IVF. I have plenty of patients who were referred to IVF and they didn't need IVF.
Yeah.
So.
And I would also say something that blew my mind in working with you, Dr. Pierre, is what is deemed as normal is actually based on the sample of the population, most of which is more sick, I would say. And the levels of what we deem normal for different kind of hormones, actually from your approach, I know you have a completely different kind of, what do you call them? Little tiers that you look at separately, sometimes from what the lab issues to you. So I thought that was really interesting too.
So that's known as optimal and suboptimal. So when you look at lab results, generally the range is a huge range, right? It's a very wide range, but that's not really helpful. So there's what's called suboptimal, which means it could be better. And there's optimal. So many times the lab values I'm looking for are what is supposed to be optimal. It's like, I'll give you a perfect example, vitamin D. Vitamin D, the range goes from 30 to 100. So that's a wide range. Many physicians will say if someone's at a 31, hey,
they're fine.
You're fine.
Normal.
Right? You're not less than 30, so you're good to go. That's not okay for me because optimal is 50 to 70. And so optimal is what's helpful for when you're trying to, make sure that, if you do get an infection or, especially cold flu season, if you have low vitamin D levels, it's going to make you more susceptible to infection. And now, of course, everyone's talking about COVID and your immune system. And when we tried to talk about vitamin D and protecting your immune system, we couldn't even talk about it, because it was like, no, it couldn't be possible. But now everyone's all seeing the research.
Now they're recognizing
Now they're like, oh yeah, vitamin D, zinc. We've been talking about this for decades.
For years. Yeah.
So, there was plenty of research. There's always been research about vitamin D and zinc and vitamin C. So I'm happy that people are finally catching up, because this isn't new. And so we weren't saying vitamin D and zinc are going to cure COVID, but it was actually being used in many hospitals, even in New York. Right there in New York, there were hospitals using it and seeing good results in combination with pharmaceuticals. And that's why I say, we need to have both. We need to have allopathic and naturopathic medicine. You cannot have one without the other because you're going to miss something. And that's what I believe. So that's why I'm integrative. If you need medication, you need medication. And maybe sometimes you need medication until you can take the steps to really change and improve your health. And we have a lot of people who aren't ready to do that. So sometimes they have to stay on medication. But for people who are willing to make a change and work for it, you can get off and you can improve your health.
Hell yeah, you can. All right, Dr. Pierre, one more question for you. So this is kind of the drum roll, the question we've all been waiting for.
What? What's the one we
This
all
is the question about basically the title of what we're talking about. So it's 2021. We all really want this to be a good year. The title is How to Make Sure Your Health and Wellness Are Amplifying Your Happiness and Success. If there's 3 tips you can give to everyone listening here to really rock this year from that health and everything that is entailed with that perspective, what are those 3 golden nuggets?
Oh, okay. Wow. So she did not tell me this ahead of time. So the first thing would be, if you haven't already, like especially last year, gone and gotten a physical from your physician, whoever that physician is. I do physicals. I'm not in person in practice anymore, though. I do telemedicine now. But a lot of physicians are going back to doing in-person visits, and they do physicals. A physical involves literally touching everything. It's not just heart and lungs. It's not just listening to heart and lungs. So I would say go to your physician, get a physical, and get blood work, and complete blood work, including vitamin D, B12, like nutrients, iron, all of that, right? So that's the body piece. The mental piece is get a therapist. I really do believe that everyone should have a therapist. Like, it's non-negotiable to me. We're carrying so much trauma and scars and pain that has not been addressed, and we think we're fine. And what happens? Hurt people hurt people. So when we have that trauma and it's built up and we're not getting rid of it, we're not addressing our trauma, then we now, put that trauma on someone else. And now it's their job to fix us, to complete us, to heal us. And we're looking to other people to heal ourselves when it really is our job. And that's why a lot of times people are wondering why they can't find their partner. You can't find your partner when you haven't found yourself. How are you supposed to now merge and combine with someone when you haven't found who you are? And so that brings me to my last thing. The most important thing, I believe, is you have to live in your purpose. That's another non-negotiable. And so whenever I say that, people say, well, how do you find out your purpose? It's that thing that when you were a kid that you were extremely passionate about, and maybe someone killed it. Maybe you wanted to be a dancer and they said, you can't dance. Maybe you wanted to be a singer and they said, you can't sing. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are to do this or do that? But it was that thing that made you light up and made your heart smile. And you decided not to do it because of money, because of family, because someone told you couldn't, because you got rejected, and you just decided you weren't going to do it again. So if you are not moving in the direction of things that bring you joy, you're not going to be happy. You'll never be happy. So whatever that thing is, you do it. You go towards that direction. It doesn't mean you quit your job tomorrow. It means that if you have a job that you're not crazy about, on the side, you pursue that passion. So, I had a patient, she is a lawyer, and she does Zumba dancing on this. So she's a Zumba instructor, and I love that. I think it's amazing because she's feeding into that part of her that brings her joy. So she still, loves being a lawyer, but it can be hard at times. And so Zumba brings her that balance. So it's possible to have these different parts of you. And I can say, being transparent, being a doctor, I have neglected a lot of the fun side of myself. So, I don't know if you saw this, but in a recent post, I talked about playing more.
Yeah, with the kite.
Yeah, and I've been so serious and just, I got to get my patients better. And I just, I got to heal everyone. And I just have to, and that's been my focus. And anything I need to know, all the research studies.
You're always in the research.
I'm always in the research, right? Hi, Michelle. I'm always in the research and always trying to figure out all these solutions. But what I have been neglecting is the playful side of me, the side of me that loves to dance, the side of me that likes to create, the side of me that likes to write. Like, I love writing. The side of me that loves to dance. I don't do those things as much anymore because my focus has just been like business, patience, got to build my business. And you wind up neglecting that piece of you. So now I see the artsy side has been neglected. So I'm trying to feed that a little bit and not make everything just about being a doctor. And while that is, an amazing job, and I I mean, sometimes I'm very humbled by what I do, but at the same time, it's not all of me. It's not everything that I do. And I just feel like to be a whole person, you have to address all the sides of you. So in conclusion, definitely go get your physical, find out what your health situation is. I know people are really afraid, but go get your blood work, make sure they check your nutrients, make sure they do a physical. 2, get a therapist. Make sure your brain is okay. Make sure you're not holding on to that trauma, because guess what? We're passing it down to our children, our partners. We're carrying these things. And lastly, pursue your passion and what gives you joy.
Perfect.
Because
Wow.
if you're not doing those things, you're not going to be happy.
Oh, brilliant advice. Wow, I'm personally blown away. I'm making a little mental check note for myself as well. And I love what you shared about your personal aspirations for this year and leaning more into your playful side, which is also a big part of you, and also your purpose and joy in life. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for hopping on. I know it's a Friday night. This is so far the highlight of my year. So thank you, Dr. Pierre. If you could just let everyone know how to find you, what's the best way to keep up to date with you and what you're up to?
Yeah, sure. So hi Cookie. I am on here, Dr. J. Pierre, and I'm pretty much Dr. J. Pierre in everything. So DrJPierre. That's also my website, drjpierre.com. I'm seeing patients through telemedicine. I also coach. I also do healthcare consulting. So any of those things, if you need me, call. And particularly, this is a shout to women. Like I said, I'm passionate about helping women get pregnant. I love you, Michelle.
So much love coming through.
I am passionate about helping women get pregnant. And like I said, it's just trying to put the pieces together to figure out what's wrong. And I do my best to try to figure it out. And like I always say, if I can't do it, I'll definitely refer you to someone who can.
Definitely. But you can. So
I can.
You've done it. You do it all day, every day.
But that's, that's the thing. Like, if you think as a doctor, you have stopped learning and that you are the only person or the only, you're not going to grow. So I'm always open to growth. And what I tell people is I'm definitely going to dig and I'm definitely going to make it better.
You're not going to find a better health detective than Dr. Pierre. She will uncover all of it and find the missing link, and you will feel heard and like you're not crazy with a lot of the things that you're struggling with. She'll really make you understand where it's coming from and help you find a natural way to improve that. So thank you, Dr. Pierre. There's so much love for you in the comments, and thank you everyone for joining.
I love you
it's
guys.
Friday, but this has been so amazing. Yes, thanks everyone.
This is a Friday night. Thank you for being here.
Got my tea, so it's wild.
Thank you. And thank you, Anna, for doing this. I appreciate you. It's always been love. You're an amazing person. You're a boss chick. I love talking to you. I love being around you. And I love being around women who are just powerful and just stepping in their purpose. And that's what you're doing. And the fact that you even put this together, like, purpose is a big thing for me, and you forced me to do it. You forced me to do it because I was supposed to do something like this. And I was like focused on my birthday. So I just want to say thank you for having me and having this conversation, because people needed to hear it. I definitely want to share it so that more people can hear it and hear what we talked about, because they need to. Yes, everyone, we all need to rock 2021. Yeah, we need to change this energy. We got to shake it up. We can't have the continuation of a lot of the sadness and the pain of 2020. It doesn't mean we ignore it, but we have to try to find a way to kind of change the energy a little bit. And we still got to push for our dreams, and we can't let anybody take our joy away, steal our joy. So on that note, good night, everyone. Thanks, everyone. And thank you again, Dr. Pierre. Have a great weekend, everyone. Good night, everyone. Bye. Bye.